Hey there, good morning and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So today we're doing our series, Rock Greats Who Thrilled Us But Has Since Passed On. This is episode 41 and the year is 2004. So we've chosen two today, of course, that's normally what we do. And they are Ray Charles, infamous piano, blues, and other type of music artist, and Johnny Ramone of the Ramones. I actually had Dee Dee and Joey on here to be being done too, but decided to do other artists for those years. But I wanted to give the Ramones some attention, so I chose the year for Johnny Ramone. So Johnny Ramone. Okay, and then of course my honorable mention. So this episode was supposed to come out yesterday morning, or I had a bit of a glitch. Basically, I uploaded it but forgot to finish it, and then by the time I noticed it, I was on my way to work. So I just redid the video this morning so that I had a bit better of a light as well. I was a little bit tired in that one, not as bad today. So anyways, we're doing Ray Charles first because I always do those who passed first go first. So Ray Charles was born on September the 23rd, 1930 in Albany, Georgia in the USA. He died June the 10th, 2004 at the age of 73 in Beverly Hills, California. His music was R&B, soul, blues, gospel, country, jazz, rock and roll. Many of them he combined into a kind of a fusion of that type of music. Progressive country, progressive soul music. Anyways, he was a vocalist and a pianist, as we all know. He was active from 1947 and through to his death in 2004. Okay, so basically his early history is a little bit interesting and sets up for his music career. So he started out, get something in my eye here, okay. He lived with his mother and his brother George at a young age. Now, his mother got pregnant when she was 15 and had him. It was from her stepdad, and so she moved out, and then eventually she moved back in with the wife of his stepdad, and they raised Ray, and then she later had a son called George. Now, the tragedy of this family is that George died drowned in a tub, in a wash bin basically, for clothing when he was 4, and then Ray started to lose his eyesight at 5, and by the time he was 7 he was blind from glaucoma, I believe. That's what they believe too. When his mother sent him to a school in I think it was in Florida, and he went there for his 5 years of school until he was 14, at which time his mother passed away, and he left school to pursue a career. Okay, so he worked for basically as a pianist in a club for $4 a night while he was still living in the town of where his mother lived. Then he moved from there to Orlando, lived in poverty and destitution and starvation for a while until he eventually landed up as a pianist player for the Lucky Melinder band. After that, he played with a group called McSun, the McSun Trio, and he was one of the members of that band. And then through the late 50s, he started putting out hits. In the late 50s, he started putting out hits. Not fantastic hits, but fairly fairly well-known hits, and then he reached national acclaim in the 1960s with Georgia on My Mind. That put him on the map. At that time, around that time, and maybe a year later, his room was searched for heroin by the police, which they found, but they didn't properly warrant it, so it actually got dismissed and he was allowed to go back out. So he continued to play. In 1962, he started. He put out 2 albums in '62. The Modern Sound of Country and Western Music 1, and then its sequel, number 2. Okay, so then that was one of the guy was talking about how he was such a great influence on music. Well, this is one of his greatest influence on music. He put country western music on the mainstream map with those 2 albums. Now, this is not a country western channel, as you know, but Ray Charles has had many, many influences on very varied artists and genres, and this is just one of them. Okay, he kicked heroin in 1964 while on probation. In 1977, he hosted the Saturday Night Live show. He was the host of that show. So he began to accumulate all of his accolades. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and was given the Kennedy Center Awards honors, and it had just a prolifery of accolades, awards, Grammy Awards. Like, just the list is endless of the stuff that he achieved. And then, of course, he died of liver cancer at the age of 73. He had just had hip replacement surgery, and was planning to make a comeback and do some more stuff, but the liver cancer took him. Anyways, Ray Charles is, for those of you who don't know him, and I can't imagine how you couldn't know him, he's got to be one of the most recognizable music and rock, soul, and blues artists of all time. Was one of the first to get kind of control of his music and his music direction. He listed Nat King Cole as one of his early influences. At least he tried to emulate him. I'm a huge fan of Nat King Cole, and if I was doing this series over again, I probably would have done him in the year that he died, but because early on I wasn't quite sure I wanted to go too far away from the rock genre. But clearly Nat King Cole has had an influence on rock music. He influenced Ray Charles, he influenced lots of people who then influenced other people who became rock stars. So I now see that, but at the time I didn't, so I didn't do Nat King Cole. But anyways, Ray Charles was a big influence by him. And this is part of the reason I chose to do Ray Charles, because of the influence of Nat King Cole on him. Ray Charles is not a musician I listen to a lot, but I've heard a lot of his stuff. As you know, every time you look at an award show, he's always on there doing something or another. And the guy has an amazing voice. And he's a good piano player. He used to write a lot of his own music early on, but then he got busy and had other people do the writing for him, including Percy Mayfield. Anyways, I think he's produced a lot of stuff in a lot of genres, right across the map, like all the stuff that ties into rock and roll, jazz, fusion, blues, rhythm and blues, gospel, soul, even some country music. All these things have added influences to the rock genre, and I think he's been very active in all of those fields. And he lived and played a good long time too, like over 40 years he was playing music. So there's a huge volume of his stuff out there, and I may delve into it at some point. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of him, but there is just no denying the influence of this person in rock music or music in general. The guy is legendary, iconic, and on anybody's rankings, he's got to rank up there quite a bit in iconic status. Anyways, there you have Ray Charles, legendary pianist and singer. The second guy I chose today was, of course, Johnny Ramone. Johnny Ramone of the Ramones. So Johnny was born John William Cummings. All of the Ramones had different names. They adopted those names. I'll talk about that in a bit. He was born October the 8th, 1948 in New York City, specifically in Queens. He died September the 15th, 2004 at the age of 55 in Los Angeles, California. Yeah, you ever notice too that a lot of these famous people start out in one place and end up in California at some point? Just funny. Of course, he was punk rock. That's what he was known for. That's what the Ramones were known for. Not just known for it, but considered one of the most influential punk rock bands of all time. I think initially they were fairly punk, but over the course of their albums, they grew gradually to become more of a mainstream pop band than they were a punk band. Unfortunately, that's sometimes the way it is. Money ends up usually dictating at some point. He was a guitar player, a rhythm guitar player. He was active from 1965 until 96, in which at that point he kind of faded into history. So anyways, about Johnny Ramone, or John Cummings if you prefer. He had I'm just going to read what I wrote here. Yeah, okay, so he came from a disciplinarian father who he didn't really like. His father was one of those hard asses. Not necessarily a bad person, but people that believe that, you sucked it up. If you were injured, you still did your job. If you were hurting, you didn't necessarily volunteer the information, as they would have used the term man up now, but his father was very much a man up type. Made him play with a broken toe in a baseball game because he said men do that, kind of attitude, and I guess he resented this, became a bit of a rebel. Basically, he was a thug is what he was. In high school, he took people's money, he bullied people, he did all those things, and he owned up to it later, but at the time, you really can't fault people for what they're like when they're teenagers. I mean, I guess you could, but many of them are just influences of their family life or their surroundings or their peer group. I think he was probably a combination of all of those things. But once they reach adulthood, they begin to start to see this, and the good ones will recognize, in my opinion, the good ones will recognize what they were doing that was not good and change it. And some of the other ones just kind of try to hang on to their childhood for much longer, some of them into their 50s. Anyways, his first band was called the Tangerine Puppets, in which fellow future Ramone, Tommy Ramone, was in the band. Later, they formed the Ramones in 1974 with Cummings as Johnny Ramone, Douglas Colvin as Dee Dee Ramone, Jeffrey Hyman as Joey Ramone, and I'm going to get this name wrong, but I'm trying to get it right, Tamas Ardolini as Tommy. Okay, so they were at that time a raw punk band on their first several albums, maybe as many as the first four. They're kind of a raw sound to them. Then during the iconic movie Rock and Roll High School, Phil Spector discovered them and took them on and was pretty strong with them. There's the legend that he held a gun to Johnny's head until he got the music right. I don't know if there's any truth to that. It sounds like a nice story, but I don't know that that would fly too well with the political establishment of the time. And they released their album End of the Century, which I think is the album that most non-Ramones fans, people who only know the band from the name and maybe a little bit of music here and there, would have at least heard of that anyways. At that point, of course, the band had begun to move to the more mainstream sound. The relationship between Johnny and Joey, who were kind of the leaders of the band, become very strained when Johnny dated and then eventually married Linda Danielle, who was Joey's girlfriend. Yeah, that kind of thing will tend to make things a little strained, eh? Like, oh, you took my woman, eh? Okay, and there's just that kind of male thing, like it's like a pissing place, like, don't go in my territory and I won't go in yours, but the stronger dog always wants the other guy's stuff. That's always the way it is, right? So anyways, they did have a bit of a strained relationship for a while, but when Joey died, Johnny was, had problems. Like, he was depressed for weeks because of it, but because he became connected to Joey, and Joey probably had the same, but he died first, so we don't get to see that part. Okay, and then of course, Joey's turn came and he died of prostate cancer that he'd been battling for about 5 years. Okay, so why did I choose Johnny Ramone? Well, I originally was going to do all four of the Ramones, but other people, and I decided that I didn't want to focus too much on a band, especially a band like the Ramones, who I really wasn't a big fan of. I've heard their stuff, some of their stuff. I'm not a huge fan of their music. I don't dislike it, not by any stretch. It's if I I may end up buying part of their collection at some point. I don't know, but I'll tell you right now, they're not a band I've listened to very much. But they are chosen today, Johnny as the representative, and because I think he was in some ways the leader of the band, they were chosen because of their influence on punk rock music specifically and rock and roll in general. I think a fairly huge influential band. When it comes to the rock, the punk scene, most people have asked who are the punk bands that you most know, are going to cite the Ramones as being one of two, the Sex Pistols being the other one. And we've already covered Sid Vicious on the Sex Pistols, so we've kind of done both. I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm not a huge punk fan. I did like some of it in my days. I did have my rebel times in high school and my attitude issues and all that kind of stuff. Just looking for a fight all the time. That's the way it was when I was growing up. Kind of ended, that kind of looking for a fight attitude kind of ended though with me in grade 9. But, and probably around that same time, my interest in punk music started to wane. But there's no doubt that the Ramones are one of the most influential of all the punk bands out there. Many feel they were kind of the main band. I don't know, I leaned more towards the Sex Pistols myself, but I get it. Everybody has the thing that they like. So I wanted to give the Ramones some attention. I think they deserve it. I think their impact is substantial. I think they're well known. And, they've had a history. So, okay, so about the Ramones issue, too, like, they decided that they all wanted to be, like, brothers. And formed this band, and basically I always, actually up until recently, I always thought they were brothers until I started reading about them and stuff like that, and discovered that it was just a pseudonyms that they all took on. So of the original 4, I believe at this point in my series, 3 of them are gone, so that only leaves Tommy Ramone. Now there's other Ramones that replaced this guy and the bass player and that, and whatever, like Marky Ramone and all this. But of the original ones, I think only Tommy at this point is left. But I'm pretty sure he passes along too at some point further on in my series. So anyways, the Ramones, they've had like some impact, a lot of impact. So that's what was my choice today. So we're going to now do the honorable mentions, because there's not as many this year. There wasn't as many notable people that I wanted to give some attention to. I tend to do, when I'm giving the attention, I tend to pick people I'm familiar with the name or I know something about. Another criteria is that I want to give a little bit of impact from different genres as well, stuff so that we keep everybody happy here. Well, not happy, but so that we mention all the genres so that we're up to date on that. That's basically what I'm trying to do here. So anyways, we have, for some of our honorable mentions, we have Terry Backer of Winder. That's a death metal band. Les Gray of Mud. Dave Schultes of the Dead Milkmen, another punk band. Of course, Jan Berry of Jan and Dean, which is kind of a Beach Boy sounding duet, if you're not familiar with them. Nikki Sullivan of who was played with Buddy Holly. I wanted to give a little 50 stuff here as well. Arthur Kane Jr. of the New York Dolls. Yeah, another kind of punk glam band. Bruce Palmer of Buffalo Springsteen. Yes, Neil Young's buddy. Terry Knight of Terry Knight, the manager from Grand Funk Railway. That's what I was trying to get out of my brain there. Dimebag Daryl Abbott of Pantera. Frank Seals of the blues, a blues guitarist. Pretty notable person, but the average person wouldn't know him. But I think he's a pretty good blues player. And then Louis Sutterfield of Earth, Wind and Fire, that kind of funk, soul, gospel stuff. So there you have it. Episode number 41. 2004, rock greats who thrilled us but has since passed on. The next episode 2 of 2005, episode 42, will come out tomorrow morning, because this one was supposed to come out Friday morning but came out today instead. So I hope you enjoyed this video today, and another one will be tomorrow. Tomorrow I will also give some of the stuff that's coming up on the channel this week coming, for Monday night's look back, Wednesday night's favorites, and Friday night live experience. I've got a couple of other things I've been working on too, but they're not quite ready to go. This Saturday is my traveling. I'm going out soon. Traveling day for CD checking. I do it once a month. Go around to all my sources and see what's out there that I might wish to purchase. So I'm looking for a good purchase. I've only got 4 new CDs this month, all of which are, well, a couple of them are rock, and the other ones are not really rock, so I won't be talking about them. A couple of them I will, but basically there's nothing overly seriously. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please like, subscribe. Tell me what you think about these 2 artists, Johnny Ramone and Ray Charles. And we will see you tomorrow morning for the next episode. So have a good day. Prog Monster out.